Me anything about politics. My name is Jared Bernstein, and I'm here to answer all your questions about politics, regardless of how simple or complicated they might be. Everyone is welcome Republicans, Democrats, everything in between, and everything on the edges. So if you got a question about politics and you don't know where to turn, well, just throw your question in the comments and I will get to answering it for you. I know that politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know that politics can be really difficult to try to parse what's going on, especially these days with all the misinformation and propaganda that is out there running rampant. So, where can you turn to get all your questions answered? Well, you can turn to my comment section. So, just throw your comments in the chat and we will get to answering your questions. Everybody's welcome. This is not a fighty show. This is not a show for getting into debates and roasting each other and yelling at each other. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. No such thing as a dumb question. I am just here to answer all your questions in good faith. So yeah, you're not going to get made fun of for trying to learn new things or having different political opinions than other people. What's up, Dan? Good to see you again. So yeah, just throw your questions in the chat. We'll get to answering them as objectively and sincerely as we can possibly muster. Dan, you're too sweet. Thanks so much. Whew, boy, oh boy. Okay, so yeah, any questions about politics? Just throw them in the chat. Thank you, Dan, for helping me reach my first live goal of the day. All right, everybody is welcome. Republican, Democrat, everybody in between and on the outskirts. Maybe there's a question that you've always wanted to ask, but you're worried that people might think you're a MAGA person, or they might think that you're some sort of a cuck libtard. Well, you can ask all those questions here, and there won't be any roasting or judgments or debating whatsoever. I don't believe in debates. I'm not trying to own anybody. I'm not trying to win any arguments or prove that other people are stupider than me. I am just here to answer all of your questions about politics as accurately, objectively, and sincerely as I possibly can. So just throw your comments, throw your questions in the chat, and we will get to answering them. I know that politics is particularly difficult to pay attention to these days. Muzz King, what's up? Good to see you again. Yeah, it's hard because there's a lot of misinformation out there, but also like all the news just seems kind of bad. So if you got questions about what's going on in the world politically in our government, then just throw your questions in the chat and we will get to answering them. So yeah, this is not one of those debate shows. This is not a show where people yell at each other. Pappy please says Trump the goat. Um I mean, I don't think he is, Pappy, please. And I think it's weird that you would just put that. But if you want to ask a question, go for it. Durrell says, but the drip drip water. Don't know what that means. JP says, if Trump loves Mom Donnie now, what does that mean for MAGA? Fox seems silent. So I don't know how this is going to play out. There's always sort of like a, coming home thing that happens with people on the right. Like they will, and I mean, it happens on the left too. Like people will talk about how pissed they are at whoever their elected leaders are, but then when elections come around, it'll basically everybody will just kind of like go back to their individual camps. Saving, of course, for all of those people that are like, what do you call it? you know, yeah, they'll go back, So yeah, Fox News is gonna start demonizing Mom Donnie again. Trump's gonna start talking shit about him on social media again at some point. That's my guess. Okay, let's see here. Dr. Benson says, "Was Citizens United the beginning of the end?" I mean, there have been 1,000 beginnings of the situation that we are in. Arguably, Citizens United is the end result of, pieces that were put into play during the Reagan or Nixon administration. So yeah, I wouldn't say that it was the beginning of the end. I would just say that it is one of many victories that the billionaire class has exerted and pushed through our political process. And all of that can be undone if people are just informed and, involved and activated. Luke McCall, I don't know who that is. Al Goy says Putin could save us. What a weird thing to say. Okay. All right. Okay. Rich Man Vance says, why undo it? So Citizens United basically said that money equals speech. And so if you are somebody who has a lot of money, you have more political speech than I do. And that is undemocratic, to say the least. And so we should undo that so that everybody has an equal amount of political influence in this country. Joy Boy says, I can take a deuce. That would be a better president and it wouldn't touch kids. No arguments here, Joy. John Abbott, good to see you again, says, I've seen some political creators saying that Doge shutting down USAID has already killed an estimated 400K across Africa, but I haven't seen sources for that and they're not super responsive. Any chance you happen to know where those numbers are coming from? I don't know specifically, but I can definitely find you because the number that I keep on hearing is 600K. Okay, let's see here. Lives lost because USAID closed. Okay, see, I'm seeing Harvard School of Public Health. I wonder if I put this in the chat if you'll be able to see it. Let's see here. Yeah, give that a go if you can see that. All right, yeah. I didn't realize that was a thing that worked. All right. Slow day for comments today. So yeah, get your questions in about politics. We are here to answer all of your questions about politics, regardless of how simple or complicated they are. There's no such thing as a dumb question. If this is not a fighty show, this is not a show for people to yell at each other. Zach says, do you think people who are fully Islam / not born in America should be able to hold power in politics? So for fully Islam, then yes, because we have freedom of religion here in America. So everybody is able to practice whatever religion they want, and that includes people who are going to be in government. Being Islam is not disqualifying for political office any more than being Christian or Catholic or Jewish or Buddhist or anything. And as far as like people not born in America, yeah, there's no law against that. We have a law against people who aren't born in America becoming president, but for people who are just Congress people or mayors or governors, then yeah, if you're an American citizen, then you're good. Testic Call says, what's your favorite CIA incited coup? I mean, they're all pretty bad, so I'm not gonna pick one that I like. John T says, United States of APAC. I mean, the United States of every well-funded lobbying organization, John T. Do you equally have a problem with Heritage and the Federalist Society? Dr. Ben Stone says, is the middle class done? It is wounded, but it is not done. Zach says, thank you. I really didn't know what the full rules were. No problem, Zach. Let's see here. Somebody with no screen name says, APAC mainly, though. Why? Because it's associated with Jewish people? Seems strange to me that you would only have a problem with APAC when Heritage and Federalist are exerting equal or greater power over our elected officials for the benefit of the billionaire class. Ian Don says, don't want to talk about politics, but I do like your hair, bro. Thank you, Ian Don. Let's see here. No, because Israel is causing a G-side. What do you think the billionaires are doing? What do you think about all of the people that are dying because the billionaires are exerting effort or exerting influence over our political process? Yeah, so then that would be equal or greater then, you know? Dan Black versus, I think his name is Landon. All right, well, I don't see anything there. So, you know, maybe you're Landon, maybe you're not. Landon says, I agree with that too, but own that Israel is doing a G-side. And don't call me a shill, man. Like, if you've ever seen my show, you know that I am vocal about criticism towards Israel. How much did they start paying you? If you don't stop with this shit, man, I'm going to boot you because I have not said one word about defending Israel or their actions, my guy. All right, Jersey Rican made it to Twitch. Thankfully, you are here. JP says, fully Islam, not 2% or 1%. It's a religion and worships the same God as Christians and Jews. So freedom of religion, question mark. Yeah, you know, it's like milk. You know, you can have full fat Islam, 2%, 1%, half and half, you know, shit like that. You defended APAC as an organization. No, I didn't. I just said that Heritage and Federalist are also lobbying organizations that I have an equal problem with. Shawnee Flytrap says Jarrett was one of the first to call it what it was. Strictly says this guy is definitely pro-Israel. No, I'm not. Dr. Benson says, will a third party ever compete? If we get ranked choice voting, we could have competitive third parties tomorrow. But the Republican Party is hostile to the idea of ranked choice voting. So if you want other parties to be able to compete, you have to support the Democratic Party so that they can make ranked choice voting a reality. Let's see here. No problem. No problem, Landon. Is that really your name, Landon? One of my followers said that your name is Landon, but I see no profile name there. Will DeThrill said, who is the problem? I mean, I would say that billionaires, Republican politicians, Donald Trump, everybody in his cabinet are the problem. Jersey Rican says, do you think Bibi is committing G-side? I mean, it's not about what I think. It's about what all the experts think. And there are multiple organizations, including those located within Israel, that are saying that this is a G-side. And so 100%, yeah, he's without a doubt a war criminal, and he's perpetuating a G-side. JP says, dang, the talk is dog whistling and inventing. Yeah, for real, JP. Fletch Lives Again says, I really think we need new rules to prevent corrupt, immoral pieces of shit from getting on the ballot. From getting on the ballot, I agree with you in principle, Fletch, but I just don't know how that legislation would look. Like, how is it that we decide who is corrupt and you said immortal, which is funny, but I think you meant immoral. Yeah, how do we decide what's the metric? If somebody like Trump was in charge, he would make it so that no Democrat could be on the ballot because he would say that all Democrats are corrupt and immoral, you know. Let's see here. Michael says, who would you vote for in Italy? I mean, I'm a lefty, so I would vote for whoever the lefty candidate is. Shell Bell says, can you explain the 30% tax idea? Is it real? I haven't heard about this, Shell Bell. My apologies. I don't know anything about that. Jeffrey Shelton says, is Trump going to go unindicted by the e-files? So because the DOJ is not operating independently the way that they're supposed to, they are basically working hand in hand with the Trump administration. I doubt that unless they are forced, they are going to release any information that is incriminating against Donald Trump or his billionaire buddies. There's some reporting to suggest that people within the FBI have been doctoring those documents, either redacting or just straight up putting things in there that were not there, or just highlighting people that they don't like and blacking out the names of people that they do like. So yeah, I don't really know if that's going to happen before the midterms. If anything is going to happen, it's going to be if Democrats get enough political power in the midterms or if they win the presidency in 28. Zach says, do you think the E-list will actually be released? And if they do, what do you think will happen? Again, I'm 90% sure that it's just going to be throwing people under the bus that Trump and his buddies don't like, and anybody that Trump and his buddies do like are going to be, weirdly going to be redacted. Scott says, do you think Trump will go through with trying to court-martial Senator Kelly? I mean, whether or not he goes through it or not, it's a nothing case. Like there's nothing there. Their incompetence is showing with great regularity, so they'll push it as far as they can, and it will be either annoying or expensive or both to Senator Kelly, but he's 100% never. There's not going to be any other repercussions for what he did. Okay, no man says, so you're a Democratic. Yes, I'm a progressive Democrat. Echo Romeo says, how can Mamdani style progressive politics translate to the Deep South? My personal belief is that these policies are popular everywhere unless you are a billionaire. And so if you can explain to people, like, we are trying to put money in your pockets, if you can do the kind of deep canvassing that Swing Left and Ground Truth is doing right now, I believe you can reach those voters with just, look, this is how the system works. The billionaires are lying to you. The Republican Party is working with them. That's why they're always cutting their taxes. The Democratic Party wants to do these policies to put more money in your pocket to undo the cost of living crisis. And the things that you've been hearing about them are lies. There's two things there. We have to convince people that the agenda is to their benefit, but also we have to convince them that the lies that they've heard about the Democratic Party are lies. Okay. Corporal Fly says, "What's your opinion on our beef with Venezuela? It's completely manufactured. Obviously, Maduro is not a good guy, but we should not be trying to do another stupid forever regime change war in Venezuela just so that Trump can get all that oil out for his billionaire buddies." Josh Soulman says, "Do you think Trump will survive USA versus cartels in terms of the nation?" I mean, Trump is a pretty old fella, so I don't think that he's going to. I think the cartels will probably continue to exist long after he has passed away from natural causes or other. Chud says, "Does college football count as politics?" No. Hamburglar says, "Dude's so deep in BS he don't even know he's drowning." Can you tell me one thing I've said that you think is inaccurate, Hamburglar? CJ says, "Do you support Trump?" No, I do not. Tad O'Dwyn, good to see you again, says, "If you find money on the street, should you donate to charity, look for the owner, or keep it?" I mean, I have found money and just kept it many times. But I suppose the nice thing, depending on how much money it is, you should probably look for the owner or donate to charity, Hamburglar says, "Free money, accurate enough. Nothing is free." What a weird thing to say. No ma says, "Should we cater more for immigrants or the homeless? ¿Por qué no los dos? Why can't we take care of all people who are suffering right now? Immigrants, the homeless, people in the 99% all struggling with the cost of living crisis. Like, we can do all of it. Dr. Benstone says, "Do you have any baby formula?" Not on me. Chad I Share too says, "Everything you hear is a lie, is BS, or it's true on both sides." So I don't buy the both sides narrative. There are wildly different outcomes based on who is in charge. Chad, there are people alive today because of the Affordable Care Act, which is only possible because of Democrats, and there are women who are dead today because of abortion bans that were only possible because of Republicans. So, it's not that it's not true on both sides. There's differences between the two sides. John, good to see you again. JP says the Hamburglar is on stream. Oh my God, say hi for me. That's very funny. Okay. Chad says, "Wow, not proportionate at all." Can you clarify, Chad? Because you're sus as hell, man. Dr. Ben Stone says, "Can we get 2% of the military budget, please?" Sure, I'll take some. Juan Sanabria says, "Yes, something so affordable that it needs subsidies since it started." That doesn't make any sense, Juan. I mean, we give subsidies so that things can be affordable. The Affordable Care Act is not called the Affordable Care Act because the government isn't spending money on it. It's called the Affordable Care Act because we use subsidies to make healthcare more affordable for other people. X Darth Dawkins says, "Why do Republicans never have any policy regarding healthcare?" The issue is that the Republican Party doesn't really give a shit about actually decreasing costs for Americans. They believe that the free market will sort all this out. And if the free market doesn't, then if you're not rich enough to be able to afford healthcare, then maybe you should just fucking go die, So yeah, they're never going to be able to have a policy that both makes healthcare access better for American citizens, but also protects monster profits for healthcare industry and insurance companies. And so, yeah, there's just like nowhere to find a compromise between those two ideologies. Alrighty, Z Cero says, "Do you think the Mark Kelly thing will be the start of the current regime going the way of the USSR with kangaroo court and summary judgment leading to wrongful arrests or death of those deemed to be against the regime?" So, Z Cero, that's an excellent question. And what I'll tell you is that they have started this process already. Like, they've been doing this for a while. The James Comey litigation, the Letitia James litigation, threatening to hang Democrats for reminding people in the military that they are obliged to not follow illegal orders. This is not the start of Trump trying to create a USSR style Justice Department that just arrests people that he doesn't like and lets his buddies go free no matter what they do. But what we are seeing is that the last vestige of checks and balances, the judiciary, is continually knocking Trump back and knocking down all of the things that he is trying to do. The Comey and the Letitia James cases have been thrown out of court. The same thing is going to happen with this Mark Kelly thing. And so long as we can keep up the pressure, so long as we can continue doing the work, so long as we can make it so that independent judges are still able to do their independent shit, then the Trump administration will not be able to go forward with this plan. We are seeing the weakness. We are seeing the holes. We are seeing the fractures in their coalition. And so I don't view this. They're going to try to escalate things, but I don't think it's going to work, just because it's doing really poorly right now. And so I really see the escalation working any better than what they have tried in the past. Okay, back into these TikTok comments. Serafina, since Georgia state representatives are being arrested for FEMA fraud. Serafina, what was the first part of your question? Why aren't members of Congress / Senate being arrested for their money laundering, e.g. USAID? So Serafina, the USAID as an organization is different than the one very specific case of FEMA fraud that you're referencing. USAID, as far as I know, there was never any actual fraud or abuse found in USAID. Doge and the Musk people just shut that down because Musk didn't like those organizations because they were investigating his businesses. But yeah, if anybody, Democrat or Republican, does fraud with taxpayer dollars in the form of FEMA or any government organization, I think they should be held fully accountable under the law, 100%. Kash Patel is right now wasting a ton of taxpayer dollars flying all over the fucking country on private jets, flying his fucking girlfriend, who is obviously honey trapping him, all over the fucking globe, using taxpayer dollars to get SWAT team to be her fucking personal bodyguards and shit like that. So yeah, fucking Kash Patel needs to go to jail also. User, a whole bunch of numbers, says the Pentagon can't pass an audit. Well, maybe if we got more Democrats in the government, they would be forced to. Ninja Nick says, what's your political party? I'm a Democrat. Let's see here. Tad O'Dwyn says, should the U.S. become the 33rd Irish county, instituting Simon Harris as supreme leader? I don't know anything about Irish politics. That's what your name is. Tad O'Dwyn. I thought it might have been like Indonesian or something, but I guess it's Gaelic. Tad O'Dwyn. Tad O'Dwyn. I'm trying my best here. It's a trap, says undocumented get taxpayer dollars via federally funded Medi-Cal. Yes, but undocumented people pay more into taxes than they get out in social services. Killy says, why Democrat and not leftist? I mean, I'm a progressive Democrat. Some people would call that a leftist. But the leftists don't have a competitive political party. So anybody who's on the left, from Nancy Pelosi to AOC, should be a Democrat. No man says, who started more wars, Obama or Trump? I'm going to go Trump. Serafina says, thanks. What is the actual difference between indictments and actual arrests? So an indictment is kind of like what you do to somebody when they are rich and powerful, because you're basically saying, like, we are going to be putting you on trial. Arrests are for people who are poor. Arrests are for people that they're worried are going to run away and leave the country. Arrests are for people that are doing violence. Like, you want to arrest a murderer, you're not just going to like send indictment papers to somebody who's accused of being a serial killer and hope that they stop doing murders while they're waiting for their trial, stuff like that. That's a real layman's understanding of it. Jersey Rican says, do you think regime is more of a clown show? Definitely. Fish emoji says, what is your opinion on OB3? I don't know what it is. Let's see here. No man, no ma says false. It was actually Obama. I don't believe that, but go off, King, I guess. Steve Schlacke says Letitia James' case will get refiled. It might, but it'll just get thrown out again because it is obviously prejudicial. Carrie Ann says left is not left enough for me. All right. Well, I guess try to change the party by voting in the primary for people that are further to the left than the current Democratic Party. Serafina says, so is Patel's girlfriend another Fang Fang? I don't know what Fang Fang is. Rent-free in your head says, ask me anything, I'm a Democrat, and then laughing emojis. I don't really understand why you think that's funny. Do you think that just because I'm a Democrat, you can't ask me anything? You can ask me anything. Okay, Ninja Nick says, do you do live shows for comedy? No, mostly I do them just for talking about politics. Okay, Ty Godin. All right, I'll do my best. Lost Convict says, do you think the H-1B1 program was exploited to let an influx of people into the USA. You know, uh, without knowing too much about the specifics, what it seems like is that employers have been exploiting that program to hire workers who they can threaten with deportation, as opposed to hiring Americans who you can just threaten with being fired. It's a good program generally, but it needs to be regulated so that that abuse cannot happen. Okay, Kuru says, "Why do you say okay between questions?" All right, verbal tick, I guess. Not any specific reason for that. Okay, let's see here. Tattered Cole says, "Do you think the left is wrong for making that video and telling military to not listen to Trump?" So, Tattered Cole, the Democrats did not make a video telling the military not to listen to Trump. They reminded the military that as part of their oath, they are required to not follow illegal orders. They didn't say anything about not following Trump or telling them not to listen to Trump. They said if you are given an illegal order, it is your right, nay, your duty, to not obey that order. Epi says, "Do you think Bondi will be prosecuted?" I think that if we get a Democratic administration in 28, then potentially a lot of people in the Trump administration are going to be prosecuted. Yasmin says, "Wait, is this guy a Democrat or a MAGA?" Democrat. Jeffrey Dahmer says, "Are you afraid of Y2K? Do you think Trump is causing it?" I mean, Y2K is over, my guy. Guru says, "Does Trump have a crush on Mamdani?" Sure seems like it. Belgian Boxer says, "Is universal health care the same as single payer? And did Trump say he was leaning that way?" I don't know. I'm extremely skeptical that Trump will do anything to move us um, towards universal health care. There is a small difference, and I'm not sure if it falls under the phrase of single payer versus universal health care. The only difference between those two definitions that I understand is that universal health care is everybody gets health care, and single payer is where you can decide to buy into Medicare or Medicaid. So the government would have its own health insurance plan that would be another insurance plan would be competing on the market with every other private insurance company, basically. Okay, Frank Gallagher says, "Yes, let's follow in Canada's shoes. They had a great year in healthcare." I don't know if you're being sarcastic, Frank, but I would definitely much rather have Canada's healthcare system than our current one. It's a Trap says, "How many primary votes did Harris get in 2020 and 2024?" I don't have that number off the top of my head. Foggle Production says, "Do you think America is going through an identity crisis?" Um, I don't think America is going through an identity crisis. I do believe that we are currently suffering from a a cornucopia of incentive structures that are misleading the American people. And that misleading is taking a number of forms, depending on what person you are. It is convincing you of MAGA shit. It is convincing you to not vote. It is convincing you to be cynical and hopeless. It is convincing you to hate your neighbor. But I don't think identity crisis. I think more of a awakening from a from a hypnosis spell is more how I would describe it. Okay. Jersey Rican says, "Do you think Trump will get impeached soon?" I'm extremely not confident that Trump will get impeached while Republicans are in charge of the House. But if Democrats get the majority in the House, then 100% he's getting impeached. Kura, answer that question. Please stop spamming with it. It's a Trap says, "Why does Newsom's California have an $18 billion deficit?" I don't love Gavin Newsom, but that deficit is not his fault. A lot of these problems are problems that got started long before he was the governor. Okay. Amber bruh says, "If he's impeached, will he leave office?" So in order for somebody who's impeached to leave office, they have to then be convicted in the Senate as well. Trump was impeached twice, but did not have to leave office either of those times because he was acquitted in the Senate. Now, that doesn't mean that he was innocent. That just means that there were Republicans in the Senate who were willing to say that he should not leave office, even though he clearly should have. So if we wanted to actually remove Trump from office, then Democrats would have to not only take back the House, get the majority in the House, but they would have to win every single Senate election that is up in 2026. And that is going to be very difficult. It is mathematically possible, but it is statistically very improbable. Kuru, I'm going to block you if you don't start asking sincere questions. Thank you very much, Crystal and Muzking, for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. Dr. Ben Stone says, do you like Tallarico in Texas? I do like Tallarico in Texas. Fog of War Productions says, Tom Holman looks like a 14th century English pikeman who's been on campaign in France for months. Yeah, that's pretty funny. SLT Violated Elf says, what do you think about the evidence supporting possible IDF soldiers working for ICE? I'm a little concerned about. I'm a little concerned about. How should I put this? I haven't seen any reporting that the IDF is in ICE right now. I'm a little concerned that that narrative is out there. It kind of feeds into a weird, anti-Jewish conspiracy theory stuff that's been going on lately, which I find very concerning. I'm open to reporting about this. I don't doubt that the Trump administration would do something like that, or that the IDF is capable of something like that. But yeah, I'm skeptical. There's a lot of misinformation about Jewish aligned things out there. Belgian Boxer says, what do you think of Candace Owens's situation? I don't really know what her situation is, but she's cuckoo's bananas, man. And yeah, like I don't think that you can devote as much time as she does to conspiracy theories and be, a credible source of information. Tay Kodoin says, would you support ending the two-party system? I would, but I don't think the two-party system is guilty of all the crimes that people think it is guilty of. Guru says, why are you conflating Israel with Judaism? I'm not. Jurax says, I missed Charlie Kirk twice. Those are not questions. Lots of people do, though, Kuru. Lots of people associate Israel with Judaism. And so if you are an anti-Semite and you want to criticize Jewish people, but you can't say that because you would get in trouble with your job or people would call you rightly an anti-Semite, you can instead spread a bunch of conspiracy theories about the government in Israel or AIPAC, and then you sort of like achieve your anti-Semitic goals with a lot of people still. Who has gerrymandered more, left or right? Right. The Democratic Party tried to get rid of gerrymandering during the Biden administration. The Republicans filibustered it because they, what's the word I'm looking for? Because they benefit from gerrymandering more than the Democratic Party does. Okay. Thank you to everybody who's helped me reach my gift goals. Lindsay and Triska, y'all are the goats. Okay. Lost Convict says, do you find it interesting that 28 companies have moved out of California since Newsom took office? I'm sure it's interesting. I'm not really sure what the cause is. A lot of people kind of like fled to Texas because of this fever dream of spending less in taxes than you do in California. The issue is that you get less in Texas because you're not paying as much in taxes. What California has is a progressive tax structure, meaning that if you're not a rich person or a giant corporation, then you are not going to be paying more in taxes than rich people or giant corporations. You're going to be getting more out of that. Better public education, better services, paved roads, shit like that. And in Texas, because they have the opposite, where you can move there if you're a giant corporation or a rich person and pay less in taxes, and the people that are living there will have to pay extra for healthcare and education because all of those public sector options are heavily defunded because they do not have a tax structure that supports it. Okay, John Selfridge says, who would replace Cash? Probably some other psychopaths. John says also, multiple reports say that Trump is now weighing whether to fire FBI Director Kash Patel. Yeah, it's just, he's got a whole fucking barrel of shenanigans and sycophants to pick from. He'll just pick somebody else who's equally shitty or worse. JP says it's worth noting that an impeachment is not a legal criminal trial. It ends with a vote, which is generally along party lines. That is accurate. John Abbott says, have you seen the reporting that there are more mid-session resignations on the horizon for congressional Republicans? I have seen that reporting, John, but I will believe it when I see it. Like, there's a lot of times we get tricked into being hopeful in the future. And, until we get like mass Republican resignations, I'm not going to I'm not going to hold my breath. Foggle Wars says, to elaborate my previous question, does America actually have a national identity? If so, what is it? I think there's two competing ones. I mean, there's honestly, for lack of a better way to delineate it, there's a Republican American identity and a Democrats American identity, where there are these ideals in the Constitution where all people are created equal. Obviously, it says men, but we're updating it for 2025. Separation of church and state, one person, one vote, freedom of religion. Nation of immigrants. Bring us your poor, you're tired, you're sick, you're hungry. However the fucking poem goes. Yeah, all of those things that we opine about when we were talking about freedom and life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then there's the Republican version, which is a little bit more like culture war, white Christian, patriarchy, yeah. Yeah, it really just seems like those are the two kind of identities that America is fighting with. Julian says, who did you vote for, Kamala or Trump? Kamala. Democrats up and down the ballot. Dr. Ben Stone says, how do you have debt when you print your own money? LOL. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I have gas in the tank to answer that question. Dr. Ben Stone, sorry about that. Lost Convicts, as I struggle with politics, it has always been united we stand, divided we fall. Doesn't seem like. Close. I'm not really sure what you're getting at there, Lost Convict. Closey says, have you looked into Plato's beliefs on democracy? I mean, not since I was in college. Lost Convict, doesn't seem like both are trying to divide. So I think there's a difference between inciting division within the voting base and accurately describing the difference between the two political parties. So I will talk about the Democratic Party being better than the Republican Party, but I do not believe that Democratic voters are better than Republican voters. I don't believe that Democratic voters are smarter or less gullible than Republican voters. There are certain statistical things that we can call attention to, like the fact that Democratic voters tend to be more highly educated. So if you graduated from high school, college, graduate degree, you are much more likely to be a Democratic voter than somebody who is undereducated, like didn't graduate college or didn't graduate high school. But I don't think that means that they're worse. What we have to watch out for are the people that are telling you that there are differences between the voters, and some of the voters are good and some of the voters are bad. So they see a brown person and they go, that's a bad voter. They see a gay person, they go, that's a bad voter. They see a LGBTQ person and they go, that's a bad voter. That's where I believe the division is happening. That's where I believe the agenda of the billionaire class is. And it's not just, that's a bad voter, that's a bad voter. It could be, that person's a progressive, that's a bad voter, versus that person's a centrist, that's a bad voter. That's why I don't really engage in all of the mudslinging that happens within the left, because I'm just like, I don't believe in it within the left. I don't believe in it left versus right either. All right. Ass Chomp says, are you a Stormcloak or do you support the Empire? Are Stormcloaks what they called the rebels in Star Wars? Because it seems like you're doing a Star Wars reference. Golden Land says, Democrats are users. Any intelligent person knows this. What do you mean by that? Serafina says, why was the head of Israel's IT department allowed to leave America after being erected in the Vegas PDF file sting? I don't know enough about that, Serafina. Sasha says, wow, you're wrong. Can you tell me one thing that I have been wrong about, Sasha? Spider Hoot says, Stormcloaks is Skyrim. That's not a thing. That's not a thing that's not a, what do you call it? It's not a world that I am privy to. Okay. Shawnee Flytrap says, who would become president if the whole cabinet were to be removed? It would be the Speaker of the House. Mike Johnson, I think, is the next in line after the president and vice president. Keegan says, Trump is amazing. That is not a question. So you are out of here. Okay. Belgian Boxer says, it's not left versus right. It's rich versus poor. Totally agree with that, Belgian Boxer. However, one of the political parties is on the side of the poor and one of the political parties is on the side of the rich. So there is a difference between Democratic politicians and Republican politicians, but it is true that we, the 99%, should not be divided by left versus right or even far left versus center left. Fork War Productions says, I'm sympathetic to the cause of the Stormcloaks, but Empire Line Jarls are all better. You guys can go ahead and do that bit without me. I do not know anything about it. Okay, scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up, scrolling up. Muzz King says, I remember in 92, people were saying if Ross Perot was elected, he'll pay off the national debts. Peter Puma says, I beg to differ. Any person that can vote for Trump is a bad voter and a terrible person. You know, Peter, I think that there are people who vote for Donald Trump and Republicans who are bad people. Like, if you are voting for Trump because he's a racist and you hope that he does things to hurt other races, then yeah, you fucking suck. If you're a rich person who votes for Republicans because you want your taxes lowered, even if it means that people are going to die unnecessarily, people are going to be living in poverty and struggling, working 80 hours a week, barely making ends meet, then yeah, you fucking suck too, and you can go to hell. But there are lots of people out there who get tricked into voting for Republicans who are perfectly good, perfectly nice, perfectly smart people. I think that we underestimate the power of the culture war that the right perpetuates, the misinformation and propaganda war that the right perpetuates, and the way that people can get stuck in the ideologies of their community. You know, if you were born into that city, in that state, going to that church, looking at that Facebook feed, maybe you would think all of those things as well. Eleni says, my best friend. I didn't know I had a best friend on Twitch. That's nice. John Selford says, as the brother-in-law of a nurse, what do you think about them not being professional anymore? I mean, it's really just the same, you know, war on the working class that the Trump administration and Republicans have been perpetuating for a long time. You know, you only count if you're part of the top 0.1%, and that includes, you know, you only count if you're a doctor versus if you're a nurse. Catchroth says the power and force of religion. You mean almost all of it comes from religious hierarchy? I don't know what that means. 70 says, do you think there really is a breakdown in the GOP? Is MAGA dying? So the obituary for Trump and MAGA has been written many times, and many times it has been not accurate. So yeah, it does seem like there is a lot of reporting, and the reporting is a little bit more dramatic now than it has been in the past. So I am cautiously optimistic, but I'm not going to hold my breath, shall we say. Serafina says, why was Senator Brian Mast allowed to wear an IDF uniform into the chambers? Serafina, I gotta be honest, that it kind of seems fake. Serafina, I worry about where you're getting your information. Cowboy SF says, this is so sad. People have no life and do this. I don't do this because I don't have a life. I do this because I believe that it's productive and that we'll have a better country if people are more involved and informed about politics. You know who definitely did not have a life, Cowboy, is your mom before I started fucking her. Okay. Stephanie says, when can we see the e-files? I don't really have a lot of faith in Kash Patel and Trump's DOJ to release all of the e-files. We just kind of have to wait and see. I think our best bet for seeing those sooner rather than later is winning the midterms. Failing that, winning 28. Okay. Let's see here. Brian Mast IDF uniform. You know what? You know what, Serafina? You're right about that. I was wrong about that. This is from The Hill. GOP lawmaker wears Israeli military uniform to Capitol Hill. What a weird ass thing for him to do. Yeah, forgive me for being skeptical about that, Serafina, but yeah. Yeah, I didn't know who Brian Mast was, but now that I see who he is, it makes perfect sense. It's trolling. You know, I don't know if there's a law against, you know, against what you can and cannot wear into Congress, but yeah, that is some real fucking trolling shit there. Okay, Jersey Rican says, so is my 2 degrees in nursing obsolete now? I don't think it's obsolete, but there's certain, I don't know, certain protections or is. But those are now up in the air, shall we say. JP says users versus producers is Ayn Randian language. Okay, so this person was full of shit. Okay, Dr. Ben Stone says, can you see a MAGA sit down with a lefties and agree on anything? Oh yeah, absolutely. But it depends on what that person is doing there. You know, if you got a Ben Shapiro or an Alex Jones sitting down with a lefty, what they're trying to do is win. What they are trying to do is prove that they are smart and the lefty is stupid. If you actually just have two people picked randomly, one a left-leaning person, one a right-leaning person, the things they will agree on are like billionaires have way too much control over our government. We are spending, way too much money on the military. The government should be doing more to protect people. Minimum wage should be raised. All sorts of things. Spider Hooch says nobody is friends with conservatives. Lots of people are friends with conservatives. Let's see here. Flamingo Mo says, why would anyone go into these fields? Go into what fields? Lost Convict says, do you have conservative friends? Seems like people nowadays, friends are along party lines. I don't have any MAGA friends. I had some MAGA family that I kind of burned those bridges before I kind of developed my new attitude towards reaching across the aisle. But yeah, there's a bunch of different flavors of conservatism. Like I've got a stand-up buddy of mine who is as close to a Republican as I think a Democrat can be. And, we're buddies. We have good faith political discussions all the time. Okay, Misty Lane says, people may say that I only dislike Hakeem Jeffries because of AIPAC, but AIPAC isn't even the largest lobbying group in DC. Isn't that interesting? And yet people seem to only be focused on AIPAC. I think that's interesting. Misty Lane says Hakeem Jeffries voted to denounce socialism when socialism isn't even a factor in America. What they really were voting to denounce was affordable housing. Jeffries also accepted $800,000 USD from real estate lobby groups, many of which support the very policies that make housing unaffordable. That's how easy it is to buy him. So, Misty Lane, let me hold your feet to the fire for a hot second about this, because there is a radical difference between a Democrat accepting lobbying money and a Republican accepting lobbying money. Because of the Democrats' platform, when a Democrat accepts money from a lobbying organization, what they are doing is watering down essentially progressive legislation. And then there are certain Democrats who are even worse than that, who will go so far as to try to destroy progressive legislation. I don't know where Hakeem Jeffries falls on that. I know that he's further to the right than I care for him to be. But if Democrats stopped taking all lobbying money, then we would be at a massive disadvantage for winning elections in the future. So there has to be a little bit of grace for Democrats taking that money. They have less access to funds than the Republican Party, because the Republican Party cuts taxes for the billionaires. So billionaires give them basically unlimited amount of money through super PAC programs. So I have a little bit of grace for Democrats who take AIPAC money, pharmaceutical money, lobby, housing industry money, et cetera, et cetera. Where the rubber meets the road is how does that money translate into votes? And if that person is voting time and time again to fuck over the poor in favor of the rich, then fucking primary that guy or girl out of there. I'm not going to defend them whatsoever. But there was one other thing that I wanted to mention, which is the vote against socialism is not necessarily about denouncing affordable housing. The Republican Party looks at everything the Democratic Party does, and they say that's socialist, that's communist, that's bad, that's Russia shit, Cuba shit, Venezuela shit, etc. And so while I don't think it's the right thing to do, and I 100% agree with you that was a stupid vote that the Democrats should not have taken, I also kind of get it from a messaging perspective. Like, they want ammunition in the we are not socialists fight. They want ammunition in the we are not extreme leftist communist fight. And so they sometimes do stupid votes like this to have that messaging ammunition. I don't think that it's effective. I don't think that it is productive. But I don't necessarily think that is what that means. It's a little overly simplistic, in my opinion, Misty Lane. Thank you, Serafina. I think you're great too. This one will be banned soon. Fortufu says Jeff Bezos and Walton family give millions to Democrats so their employees can stay on welfare. All billionaires donate to Democrats because Democrats keep them rich. So that is inaccurate. This one will be banned soon, 424. It is true that the Democratic Party is not as aggressive against the billionaire class as some of us on the progressive left would like them to be, but they are way harsher on the rich and the giant corporations than the Republican Party are. If you look at billionaire donations to politicians, 75% of all billionaire donations go to the Republican Party. So while it is true you can pick individual billionaires that do donate some money to the Democratic Party, it is likely that number one, those billionaires are also donating to the Republican Party, and number two, there are way more billionaires giving way more money to the Republican Party. Are you still here? This one will be banned soon, or did you just want to put that misinformation and then dip out? This one will be banned soon, says Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Mark Cuban. You know, a lot of those guys were standing behind Trump at the inauguration, so I don't think that that is the proof point that you think that it is, my guy. So here's the problem that I have with people who are arguing this point the way that you are. This one will be banned soon. Is that I just gave you sort of like the zoomed out version of the conversation. I said, let's not pick individual billionaires. Let's look at all the billionaires. Like, who gets all of the billionaire money? And it is decisively the Republican Party that gets that. And then you respond to that by listing individual billionaires again. So it's like you're cherry picking information, whereas I'm trying to look at the data as a whole. Does that make sense? This one will be banned soon. Let me know what you think about that. Okay, Jersey Rican says, Jared, so me being on Twitch will get something for me having Amazon Prime, so do you need to do something extra? You know, I'm not 100% sure, Jersey Rican, but if you have Amazon, there should be something to click, like a box that you can click when you subscribe to my channel, where it's like free for you, so long as you're an Amazon Prime member, but I get $2 from that, from everybody that does that. But I've never done it, so I don't know how it works. Somebody told me that, and so I've just been telling people to do that. Right, this one will be banned soon. Are you still here? Do you have a response? Let me know. Serafina says, what do you think about the emails between the fellow with the island and members of Congress / the Senate? So I, hold on a second, Serafina. Fogger Productions, that was very cool of you. I appreciate that comment. Okay, Serafina. I mean, there is a lot of information about connections that Epstein had with powerful people, both Republicans and Democrats, people in all sorts of industries, finance, Hollywood, you name it. When we need to get all this information out there so that we can hold those people accountable, so that we can unelect them if necessary, impeach them if necessary. I don't know if anything has come out that is legally liable for those politicians, but some of it may be like just in the, that is really sketchy. I don't trust that you would have a good reason for doing that, and so I'm going to vote against you. Okay, Short says, do you think the Ukraine peace deal is good or bad? It is 100% bad. It is literally just the Russian peace deal, which is all the things that Russia wants and nothing for anybody else. Okay, Stoic Silence says, I'm trying to decide which side of American politics is worse. Is like trying to decide, do I want syphilis or herpes? Both awful, but only one curable. I mean, I think you're kind of right there, Stoic, but I also think you're not giving the Democratic Party enough credit. For me, it's a little more like chlamydia versus AIDS. I think syphilis and herpes are too close together. Okay. JP says, for Twitch Prime sub, when you click subscribe on Twitch, there is a small checkbox in the bottom left of the window. All right. Thank you, JP. I appreciate you doing that. Tomas says, how many Democrats voted for the GBBB bill? Is that the big, beautiful bill? I don't know what that G is. I don't know what you think about that. Let's see here. All right. Serafina says, do you think Trump is in Venezuela trying to get a refund from Maduro for all the USAID funds paid? So no. The reason why Trump is starting to start a war in Venezuela is so that they can get access to all the oil there for Trump's billionaire oil buddies. Marco Rubio has a real fucking bug up his ass about left-wing authoritarians, but he's fine with right-wing authoritarians. He believes that toppling Maduro in Venezuela will lead to toppling the government in Cuba, which yeah, let's topple some more governments so that there could be more fucking sectarian civil war violence, roving gangs fucking murdering each other. Haven't we learned about regime change wars already in the past? It's so fucking stupid. Alrighty. Misty Lane says Marjorie Taylor Greene resigns from Congress, then immediately leans harder into Palantir stock. She leaves office as a private citizen with a stake in a company that makes its money stealing your data. How do you feel about that? Marjorie Taylor Greene is like a fucking stopped clock. She says two right things a day. But she is still the same piece of shit that she was when she thought that Jews had a space laser, when she thought that the IDF killed JFK, and now she's made millions of dollars doing insider trading in Congress. When she decided to be on the right side of history by standing up against the Trump administration, and then just left because it got hard. It's like, go to hell, MTG. Evan Petty says Trump or Harris. Brandon S. Tips for a 30-year-old late bloomer that's trying to get more educated on all things political, aside from all the damn clips. I would try to find a daily news roundup podcast. I like this one that's called What a Day. They basically just like do a little bit of news about everything that's going on. And the more that you just kind of like start hearing things, you kind of pick things up through osmosis. You start picking up definitions and who various people are and what various agencies do. If you find that to be really palatable, then you can do some more long form podcasts. But to me, podcasts have been really instrumental in being able to parse through the news and try to figure out what's going on and kind of like get a base understanding of a lot of the terms and the people involved in political discussions. And if you go to my Discord, link is in the bio, I have a thread of recommendations for books and podcasts that I recommend to everybody, regardless of how much or little they know about politics. Green Eyes says, Pod Save America. I love Pod Save America. Ben Shapiro's femboy husband says, what do you think about the Sudanese war? I don't know too much about it. I'm against wars and violence. Fog War Productions says, I don't get the whole foreign oil thing when I'm standing on the biggest shale deposit on Earth, because they need more. They always need more. They have greed, disease. They have gold sickness. Serafina says, has BLM been deemed a terrorist organization? I asked since Maduro has photos with BLM founders. So I don't know about BLM founders taking pictures with Maduro. So this one's a little bit complicated, Serafina, because the Trump administration does have the power to label foreign groups as terrorist organizations, but their legal ability to label domestic organizations as terrorist organizations is extremely limited because of the freedom of speech that we have here in America. So yeah, it's possible. I believe a while ago he signed an executive order stating that certain groups are terrorist organizations, and if I'm remembering correctly, BLM was one of them. But that is not a legally binding executive order. BS2 says, which would indicate what exactly as far as the labeling groups terrorist organizations? I'm not 100% sure on. Serafina says, yes, the fact that 3 ladies of BLM have been posted. I mean, I don't know who they are. I don't know if they have any, legitimacy within the movement. The Black Lives Movement, for my 2 cents, is more valuable than the infrastructure. It is the idea. It is the idea that we should not be letting the police just murder anybody that they want. Shork says, do you think normalization of relations with Saudi Arabia is smart? I mean, they kind of been normalized. I think we need to start distancing ourselves from Saudi Arabia. I think that we have allowed MBS, the ruler of Saudi Arabia, to get away with sports washing, comedy washing, politics washing his reputation. He ordered the murder of a journalist, and that is extremely fucked up. It is a repressive regime. It's bad, and I don't think that we should allow that to happen. I think it is long past time that we have started, holding the ruling class of Saudi Arabia accountable for all of their war crimes and shit like that. Fog War Production says, so what you're saying is that the billionaire class is delving too greedily too deep. Excellent Fogaware Productions. Excellent Tolkien reference. Okay. Shiny Flytrap says, did you see that MBS is in the e-files? I did not see that. A Mal Yay says, you Zionist or no? I don't use the term Zionist because different people have different definitions for what it means. I believe that what Israel has done to the people of Palestine is barbaric and illegal. They are guilty of war crimes. They're guilty of genocide. I do not support Hamas either. I do not support removing the people that live in Israel right now. A lot of those are just regular ass people trying to live their lives who, they've been there for generations. And so the same way, I don't think that Israelis should be able to evict people from their homes in the West Bank and let's take that territory over. I also do not believe that we should be evicting all of Israel from Israel. Okay. Fogwar Productions says Saudi Arabia and the rest of OPEC are bad faith actors in the global oil market too. Yeah, another reason why we should be hastening our transition to renewable energy. A Mall says, well, Zionism is literally the reason why Israel has done that. LOL, that's their political ideology. They're pretty much Germans of the 1940s. De-radicalized. I don't know where that was supposed to go. Yeah, but some people don't agree that that's what the definition of Zionism means. Some people, Zora Mamdani got into trouble for saying globalize the Antifada. And everybody argued about what that meant. And it was literally just a war against injustice. But some people thought, no, it's advocating for violence. And the exact same shit with the term Zionism. Some people believe that Zionism means that Israel is ascendant in that region and they have the right to annihilate all of their neighbors and annex all that territory. Some people believe that Zionism just means that the people that are living in Israel should have a right to stay there. Okay, Willie, good to see you again. I'm so glad you joined the Discord. Fogwar Productions says, I remember what happened to my oil town when Saudi Arabia went, I don't know what that word is, during Obama's second term. Let's see here. When will we run out of plastic? Leah, no time soon. I don't believe so. A Mall says the only people offended by the word Antifada were people who like to eliminate Palestinians. Their problem. A Mall, I would encourage you to turn the temperature down a little bit on your rhetoric because there's all different kinds of people out there. And you insisting that X thing means X thing, or the only people who have a problem with this are these people. Can you imagine a world in which people who only want peace for everybody, regardless if they're Israeli or Palestinian, were just convinced by some stupid fucking op-ed or Facebook post that globalize the Intifada was a call for mass violence? Because I can believe that. I have friends who believed that Zohran Mamdani was anti-Jewish, and they're perfectly nice people. They just got fed the wrong propaganda, Gingerman says they ask about a dead journalist but ignore the 85,000 dead children in Yemen. I don't love that, Gingermint, also. So I don't really understand where that accusation was coming from. Ooh, I gotta get back over to Twitch and YouTube. But I got so many comments over here. As You Wish says, do you think we live in a plutocracy or a democracy? I mean, right now we live in an oligarchy, in a kleptocracy. But ideally, we would be living in a democracy. Buffalo Trucker says, why are all these people crying about the change in what's considered professional degrees? I believe that there are certain rights or privileges that you get if your job is listed as professional. I'm not 100% sure what those are. And I think that if nothing else, it demeans people who are certain professions and saying that you are less valuable. Okay. A-Mall says, I wouldn't care about people's feelings who think they matter more over 100K dead. Again, A-Mall, you are assuming that those people don't care about 100K dead. I'm saying those people don't know about 100K dead. I'm saying those people were being told that 100K dead is because of Islamic extremists or Hamas or some shit like that. So I think you need to open your heart a little bit to the idea that people that disagree with you might have good intentions or might not have all of the information. Alrighty. Elaney, let's go, my family. Hooray. It's the Rocketeer says, I live in a gerontocracy. That is adorable. I love that. All right, let's get back into some of these YouTube and Twitch comments here. Serafina says, like during COVID, who were essential versus non-essential? I think so, Serafina, but again, I haven't looked into it. I don't want I don't want to monologue about something that I'm just kind of guessing about. Stoic Silence says, did you see Candace Owens claim the French government has to put out a sanctioned assassination on her? Clearly not in the conversation, so she comes up with that shit. Yeah, she's bananas. I do not believe that France is hiring a hit squad to go after her just because she insists that the president of France's wife is a guy. She's bananas. She's a conspiracy theorist. She's in this for the fucking money and the clout. Do not trust. Do not endorse. 0 out of 10. Abort. All right, John Abbott says YouTube channel Belle of the Ranch is great for news, daily, and politics. They do 3 videos a day on current events with a lot of great explainers and all kinds of political topics. Oh, I love that. I got to check out Belle of the Ranch. They also have a second channel called The Road's Not Taken with a weekly roundup of stories that didn't get much attention and are likely to be important in the future. That sounds really interesting. I will definitely check that out. Misty Lane says billionaire lobby groups like the National Association of Realtors don't actually care if the middle class is priced out of their homes because they view it as free real estate. Agree with that, Misty Lane. Elaine says Candace Owens doesn't believe in dinosaurs. Don't listen to anything she says. Agreed. Puerto Rican says, will we have an epidemic with a deadly disease due to the quack we have currently? I mean, we're already seeing increased numbers of things like whooping cough and measles and mumps and shit like that. So yeah, I fear for the state of public health with RFK Jr. at the helm. Yeah, I would be worried. I would invest in masks, ASAP. Real Benda says, did you see the pardon this morning? He was a turkey. I think that's a bit. Serafina says, do you find Tim Burchett fair? Don't know who that is, Serafina. Shiny Flytrap says, have you thought about interviewing politicians? You'd be amazing. Oh, that's very sweet, Shiny Flytrap. Yeah, I definitely would. I don't know if any of them would accept an invitation, but I guess I'll put them out there. Fogmore Production says, in the U.S., power is handed down from grandfather to grandfather. I'm not sure what that means. Baller says, how are Polish politics right now? I don't know. Okay. Turtle in a Half Shell says you can't get federal loans for those professions now. Gotcha. So now we already are suffering from a staffing shortage in the healthcare industry, and now it is going to be made worse because nurses cannot get federal student loans or federal loans, low interest rate student loans. Yeah, that's fucking bullshit, man. Trumpster says, I know the answer, but do you, ? What party started the KKK? I don't believe that a specific political party started the KKK, but I do believe that the KKK was more aligned with the Democratic Party before the parties switched their ideologies regarding people of color, marginalized communities, Jewish people, etc. Are you familiar with the parties switching their stance on equal rights, civil rights, shit like that, Trumpster? Do you hang on to the idea that the Democratic Party started the KKK as like a gotcha, as if to suggest that the Democratic Party is more racist today than the Republican Party? I'm just asking, because people tend to tout that factoid as if to say that Donald Trump is not a racist. That's the Democrats that are actually racist. Willie says, have you heard Ryu Phillips, who's running for Senator West Virginia? He's an interesting person. I have not. Okay. Mon Guero says, does my vote really matter when I'm in the minority by a lot in my state? Yes, Mon Guero. Yes, your vote counts 100%. Your vote still counts. I know that people are out there telling you that your vote doesn't count, or that the value of your vote is diluted because of where you live, but it still makes a big fucking difference. Do you know what the largest voting bloc in America is? It's not Democrat or Republicans, it's non-voters. And so it is very likely, mathematically possible, but statistically improbable, that everybody who doesn't vote in your state might agree with you, and then your state could become, you would not be the minority anymore. So yeah, always vote, 100% vote, make voting a habit, vote often. Voting is the most important thing that we do as citizens. There are people alive today because of the Affordable Care Act, which only exists because people voted for Democrats, and there are women today who are dead because of Republicans that people voted for. Sorry, I usually say this much more eloquently. I've said it 1,000 times. And there are women who are dead today because of abortion bans that were only possible because people voted for Republicans. Charlie says, would you vote for Reform in UK? I don't know enough about that party. Shiny Flytrap says, "Can I vote by mail in the primaries?" I believe, depending on which state you're in. Yeah. Bam 2.7 says, "I feel like you're not knowledgeable enough to talk about politics." Well, no one's forcing you to be here. Bam. Anthro says, "Yeah, dude, you're definitely not biased at all." I'm not. Can you name one specific thing that showcases a bias that I have, Anthro, that I have said? Serafina says, "Do you think the purchased CDL licenses also registered them to vote?" That I do not know, unfortunately, Serafina. So sorry. Jersey Rican Elaney says, "What's your opinion on Tim Pool, brother?" Tim Pool is a liar. He is a con man. He is getting paid by the government of Russia. He's a real piece of shit. Do not endorse. Do not listen. He is, yeah. Ooh, Misty Lane says, "People cannot win without money from lobby groups. Do you think that rich people have an unfair advantage in politics?" Yes, Misty Lane, without question. That is what shit like Citizens United did. That is what personhood for companies did. Is it gave billionaires more power. And it is not an accident that that happened. If you read Dark Money by Jane Mayer, you will see that this has been a billionaire project for a long time, since the fucking 70s. The Koch brothers have been on this shit. It's a fucking shadowy network of billionaires doing a fucking conspiracy to increase their political power so that they can deregulate all these industries. They can become powerful and rich and don't have to worry about obeying the laws and shit like that. And the rest of us will just be their wage slaves, serfs, just eking out a living, dying of preventable diseases in the process. Smart Cookie says, "What political commentator doesn't get paid?" I don't get paid. This show is funded entirely by donations. Right. Real Bendis says, "Will the income discrepancy get so bad in the next 20 years that the U.S. will become like South Africa?" I mean, it will if we don't do anything about it. Fog War Production says, "Why do the British eat as if German warplanes are still circling overhead?" You know, there is such a thing as like generational trauma. It gets itself into your DNA. And so, that it's a real thing. It's fascinating. But yeah, if you grew up during a depression, your children will still have those habits. My mom grew up poor in the Bronx in the 1950s, and I still have some of those poor habits that she had. BAM says, "You're not a political commentator." Am I not? Seems like I am. I'm commenting on politics, right? Okay, Serafina says, "Do you think that all world leaders and politicians went to the same boarding schools and know each other since childhood?" I think some do, but I don't think that all of them do. Okay. Meatball says, "Do you like to be the train or the caboose?" I don't really know what that means. Seems like you're making a sexual joke about me, which is inappropriate considering my relationship with your mom. Antho says, "You've been talking bad about Republicans the whole time, like they are killing people. You don't have a single good thing to say about a Republican." So, Antho, are you still here, Antho? I would love to respond to that comment. Okay. Misty Lane says, "Jared is funded by donations from the DNC. Sorry, I had to do that tiny dunk. I don't really believe that." I'm glad you don't believe it, because it's actually not true. I get zero money from any massive organizations. It's literally just individual donations. Anthro. Okay, so I do not believe that it is inaccurate to criticize Republican politicians. You will never hear me say a bad word about Republican voters. I am not here trying to say the Republican voters are worse or bad, or they're all racist or all greedy. Some of them are, but not all of them. And I would go so far as to say that the majority of them aren't. They're all perfectly fine, smart people. But if you look at the things that the Republican Party has voted for, if you look at their platform, if you look at outcomes based on when they are in charge, both federally and statewide, it becomes clear that the Republican Party has blood on their hands. If only from abortion bans. Women are dead today because of abortion bans that Republican politicians put into place. They voted for Supreme Court justices who made it possible for states to ban abortion, and those abortion bans then got put in red states, and then those abortion bans killed women. That is a fact. That is not a biased thing that I am saying. Let me know what you think about that, Antho. Serafina says, "I believe both parties have blood on their hands." Yes, Serafina, it is accurate to say that both parties do have blood on their hands. But I only see one party trying to change that system. I only see one party trying to make it so that so that politicians cannot cause the harm and death of individuals. Anthos says, I'd rather sacrifice a couple of mothers than 1,000s of children. Well, Antho, the abortion bans that are taking place in red states are not stopping abortions from happening. They are not even decreasing the number of abortions that are happening, Antho. So the only thing that those children, as you described them, I don't believe they're children. I believe that fetuses are not children. But as you're describing it, thousands of children are being aborted still, and also those mothers are dead. Antho, what do you think about that? Sunshine Wildflower says Republican politicians are guilty of practicing medicine without a license. Is that true? I didn't know that. Jacob Raymond says, what about the women in the states that have blood out because they couldn't get care? Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, Jacob Raymond. Let's see here. Brad Blaine says, why can't we get rid of the party system? So there are a lot of logistical hurdles toward unseating the two ascendant political parties, Democrats versus Republicans. But one of the ways that we can empower other parties to join the process is by having ranked choice voting in every election. The Republican Party is trying to ban ranked choice voting. The Democratic Party is trying to expand ranked choice voting. So if you want to take down the two-party system, the best way is through. The best way is to vote for Democrats who are not hostile to ranked choice voting. Okay, Antho, still waiting for your answer about the children that are dead and additionally the women that are dead. Antho. Meatball says, gotta make metal coat hangers thicker. What a weird thing to say, Meatball. Real Bendis says, do you think the executive branch has too much power regarding any, regardless of party affiliation? Yes, Real Benda, 100%. Let's see here. Jersey Rican says, Jared, did you see my question? Let's see here. Do you think we will have a zombie apocalypse with a quack in charge? No, I don't think zombies is a real thing. So I don't think that they're I don't think that zombies is something we have to worry about in the near future. Alyssa says, thoughts about abortion. I am pro-choice, but even if you are pro-life, you should still vote for Democrats because Democratic policies actually decrease abortions. Republican policies don't decrease or get rid of abortion. They just make pregnancy more dangerous for women. Serafina says, didn't Planned Parenthood profit by selling aborted fetuses? I don't know how accurate that is, Serafina. If you send me a DM or email me through my website or join my Discord, Serafina, and you remind me, I will look up information on that because that sounds sus as hell. Antho says, what about them? You said you would rather have a few dead mothers than thousands of aborted fetuses. But what I said was those mothers died and those fetuses are still getting aborted because as try as they might, Republican policies aren't decreasing the number of abortions. So the number of abortions is the same. The only difference is that some women who wanted children are dead. So what do you think about that, Antho? MJV says, oh my God, you should know this too. You're a new guy. What does that mean? Angela Baby says, do you think ICE and Trump will be held legally accountable after this nightmare is over? I'm going to say maybe. I think there's a chance that Trump dies before he faces legal accountability. But depending on how much political power we give the Democratic Party in 26 and 28 and how much pressure we are able to put on them to actually hold these people accountable, then yes, there will be legal consequences for Trump and the people in his administration. That ugly twink says abolish income tax under 100K and create proportional wealth taxation policies. Interesting. I don't know. That's really interesting. Abolishing income tax under 100K. Yeah, I mean, it checks a lot of boxes for me. Yeah, it's interesting. That ugly twink. Real Bendis says, random thought, you need to include DC sub sandwich thrower in your comedy routine. I'll see what I can do. Devin Morgan says, what do you think about the BRICS alliance? It's concerning, obviously. I think that's, we need a foreign policy that is a coalition of other countries based on diplomacy, soft power, and philanthropy. And that is not what the Trump administration is doing right now. The Trump administration is basically empowering BRICS to take over the world order. We have given all of our power to BRICS because we have removed ourselves from global markets through tariff wars and trade wars and stupid shit like that. Empowering the Netanyahu government, trying to start wars in South America. Like, it is just the opposite of smart policy towards BRICS. That ugly twink says we shouldn't be taxing hardworking labor. The real money is in wealth. I 100% agree with that. David Douglas, I think Americans don't want to give anyone the power to do anything. I mean, I want people to have the power to do things. Seamus says, what's the highest impact point to share for why we should impeach Trump? That is a difficult question, Seamus, because people have different priorities. And so where a priority for me is income inequality, the fact that the big, beautiful bill is a massive transfer of wealth from the poor to the rich is, massively, what's the word I'm looking for? It don't look good for Donald Trump, but is that an impeachable offense? I think the crypto coin is probably the highest endpoint to share for why we should impeach Trump. It's pretty clear that that's just straight up corruption and bribery. We have a pretty direct line from people buying his crypto coin or donating money or buying, sorry, my vocabulary is failing me right now. Between donations and bribes that Trump has gotten through his cryptocurrency and political pardons that he has done. And so that seems pretty one-to-one for me. But there might be other ones. I'm not really sure. Meatball says, I have a vasectomy and the stitches came out. My sack was blowing bubbles. You have one more chance to ask a question, Meatball, or I'm going to boot you. Dylan says, hey, bud, how's it going? Going pretty good. How are you doing? Lemmy Gardenmeister, good to see you again. Says, if he's impeached again, what does that even do? He didn't get thrown out last time. So if Democrats do not have 67 seats in the Senate, then it is impossible for him to be removed from office. I do not believe the Republican Party is going to vote to remove Trump anytime soon. It's possible, but I don't think it's going to happen. The value of impeachment is that it's something, like if we don't impeach presidents in the House because we do not believe that Republicans are going to do the right thing and remove him from office in the Senate, then we are basically rewarding the Republican Party for not doing their job. But we need them on the record. We need Republicans to say, we have heard all the evidence, we have seen the impeachment hearings, and we're still going to vote to keep Donald Trump in office. And that will be a massive indictment on them and their character. The fact that the Republican Party did not indict Trump, did not remove him from office after either of his impeachment hearings in 2020, I think speaks volumes about their priorities and their lack of any kind of moral foundation. All right, everybody. Misty Lane says, what's the Discord? I have got I've got a Discord channel. Discord is it's like a, I don't know how you describe it, a messaging platform or something like that. Basically, if you go to my bio on, I think it's on YouTube also, but if you go to my bio on Twitch or TikTok, it will take you to a page with a bunch of links, and one of those links will be the Discord server. And if you have a Discord account, then you can join the Discord server and you can be part of the community of people that also like this show, and you can get in touch with me that way. Or you can just see recommendations for books and podcasts and all sorts of cool shit. I like the Discord. It's one of my favorite resources right now. If you have any questions that I was not able to answer here on the live stream, or something comes up later, DMs are open. You can email me through my website. Discord server, again, is great. I want to be a resource for you guys to be able to answer your questions and get you more involved in politics. So if I can be a resource for you guys to be more involved and more informed, I want to be that resource. So use me and abuse me. Use me until you use me up. If you want to support the show financially, you can, but you don't have to. I know that we're all struggling. I have a Patreon that you can join for as little as $1 a month. I have a store that you can buy things from. Links to both of those things are in my bios. And you can send gifts and become super fans and subscribers on TikTok and Twitch and YouTube and all the various platforms. Jay says, what side are you on? I'm a progressive Democrat. Let's see here. If you have Amazon Prime and you want a free way to help me out and help out the show, if you subscribe to my channel on Twitch using your Amazon Prime account, that's completely free for you, but I get $2. And so that is a what do you call it? That is a great free way for you to support the show. Shout out to my patrons, Robert, Shannon, Carmine, and Patrick, and shout out to my TikTok superfans, Susie, Sean, Dan, and Hot Sauce. Y'all are the goats. And my regular streaming schedule is Monday through Friday, starting around 11:30 a.m. Pacific time. Obviously, we got the holidays coming up, so there may or may not be a stream tomorrow while my wife and I drive up to our in-laws' house. It is unlikely that if so there might be a live stream tomorrow, but there's definitely not going to be one on Thursday or Friday. So if I don't see you on Wednesday, I will see you guys on Monday, same bat time, same bat channel. And lastly, for anybody that hasn't heard this speech before, I believe that the only way that we get out of this, the only way that we have a better country, and we don't all have to be fucking struggling under the weight of a rapidly increasing cost of living and rapidly inaccessible housing and healthcare and education, is if we all do the work. If we become the messengers, if we become the recruiters, if we get out there and not only vote, but work with groups that are doing the work and recruit other people to do the work and convince other people to join us in this work. That is the only way that we get out of this, in my opinion. So do the work. The more people that do the work, the fewer people that have to do all the work. So join me in doing the work, everybody. Join me in doing the work. Let's all do some work. Joshua says, why are people using the e-files for political reasons instead of spreading awareness? Because some people are craven and have their only desires for more power and wealth. Congratulations, Meatball. You are out of here. You have a good Thanksgiving as well, Jack. There's a spending blackouts as well for Amazon, Target, and Home Depot over this week, guys. Nobody shop at Amazon. Nobody shop at Home Depot. Nobody shop at Target, everybody. Dan Blackwood says, I'm trying to speak to people in real life more. I spoke to my stepmom, which I almost never do. I'm really happy to hear that, Dan Blackwood. Florida Dude says, I guess not anything. What was your question, Florida man? Don't really see a question here, Florida man. Don't really see one. And yeah, stunningly. Wait, hold on, Antho, are you still here? If Trump could be impeached, it would have happened already. God damn, Antho, are you still here, man? Because you never responded to my fucking thing. All you did was fucking push some more conspiracy theories, my guy. Where the fuck are you at, though? I'm gonna highlight all the things that you've written. That's what I want to do. Where is it? God damn it. I'm so fucking wasting time here. Florida Dude says it's censoring me. Well, maybe you should rephrase your question or something like that. Antho, is it possible? Let me just highlight all your things. I want to see all your comments. That is a feature. If anybody here works for TikTok, how do I see translation, bring comments? Yeah, I don't see it. Antho, are you still here? Yeah, Antho's doing some real both side shit. All right, everybody, I'm gonna get out of here. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow, but if not, have a great holiday. Have an excellent Thanksgiving. Be good to each other. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. And at the very least, I will see you guys on Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye. Goodbye, 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 goodbye. Goodbye, goodbye, goodbye.